Hello and welcome to the Overlap Rugby podcast. This is, I believe, number 31.
Yeah.
Daragh, Shane.
Hey.
We are a couple of Irish lads. We'd like to talk about rugby, and rugby is coming on thick and fast right at the moment.
Yeah, it's getting into proper international windows. We always had our curtain raisers last weekend. We had Bledisloe 3, we had Japan v the World 15.
We did. I didn't really get a chance to see that one, I'm afraid. It was early in the morning, but I believe they were about 31-3 down and then
managed to rally
back to something. Yeah.
Honourable display for sure. Bledisloe 3 was interesting enough. Kind of went the way we foresaw it going. It kind of just very hard to. Obviously, it's hard to put any money against the All Blacks these days, but just the Wallabies as well. It's like there's very little to be confident about. Like, I do feel bad for those genuine Irish or genuine Aussie, Australian rugby union fans, because they seem to be in an increasing minority, and it's kind of reaching for positives a lot of the time. It was a bit of a sloppy performance. They never lack courage, and they always keep it going. They did make a fight out of it, and when the All Blacks were being inaccurate, which they were at times, they were definitely in the game. They can mix it up, but it's just I don't know where they're going, and like Curtly's not getting any younger, and what happens when he goes?
No, I mean, it's from the Wallabies perspective, I should say. It's a bit hodgepodge. It's a bit makeshift. Like Folau and Beale in the centre.
Yeah, that
Beale
did not work.
Spent half the season at 10 for some strange reason.
Yeah.
It's like there aren't those guys coming in behind, and the few injuries that they have had. I know Karevi's back now, but Kurandrani and Reece Hodge now gone. It's just exposing a real lack of depth, and instead of what Czechia, in an ideal world, if you're thinking for the World Cup next year, Czechia talk about, we do deliver, we want to make a final, we want to do that thing. Like right now, November, this should be the time for just really, really trying to get that squad depth. I mean, in an ideal world, they should be doing what South Africa are doing right now for the autumn internationals. No Faf, no Vili. Let's just take the spark out of the back line and see how it functions.
Yeah.
But he can't take Beale out. He can't take Folau out. Probably because his job's under a bit of pressure. Just reading the media over there, there's such pressure on him to deliver results right now, and so he's forcing it, and he's keeping those guys in, and he's throwing them in all kinds of parts of the back line, trying to see what sticks. And in the end, they're still not winning games.
What's not sticking?
The passes are what's not sticking. Nothing is sticking at all, including the passes.
Yeah.
And then the problem now is that, like, you look at a game like that. Look, there were some positives. They did as they always do. Their good players played well. They moved it with a bit of pace. Guinea are looking good again, and they were genuinely threatening at times, and they scored I think a couple of nice tries, and it was in that sense it was fine. But ultimately they're no better off for having played that game, and it just goes down as another L on the list. And I have to think, if I'm Czech at the moment, I have to think, look, if they're going to fire me, they're going to fire me, but I need to change something up here. And I know they got Sean McMahon back, but right now I would be sorely tempted to take young Wallabies into the November series, young hungry Wallabies, not this beat up team that he has now at the moment, and then just let everybody rest, let the dust settle. I know they probably lose the young Wallabies. I mean, one of the big talking points that comes out of Australia at the moment is just how little depth they have, but at the moment just sticking with this very settled team that is just settled on losing is I think it's a recipe for disaster for the World Cup. We've seen what a few injuries can do to them, and I think the best thing that they could do at the moment is just give those guys a bit of a break, let the dust settle, let them get back into Super Rugby next year after a summer holiday, and come back next year ahead of the World Cup. And in the meantime, you can
gather the reinforcements,
gather the also-rans, and see who amongst them can step out. As it is, I think what he's going to do is keep picking the boys, Beale and Folau, and I think, as they always do in November, they probably will rally a little bit and get a result, or at least put up some good games. But at the end of the day, I just don't think it's spelling good news for them going forward, because they're just at this, like, when every other team is getting to this elite level of professionalism where they're tinkering with depth, they're trying to they're tinkering with different styles of play. I mean, if you look at the All Blacks and Ireland and even Scotland and even some like South Africa, who are also rebuilding, and
England,
like
France,
all of them. Well, England and France is slightly different as well, but all of those teams they've laid the foundation, they're built on the foundation. They have an idea in mind as to what side they're going to play in the World Cup, and then right now, a year in advance, they're fiddling with other things. You know, they're trying to just add layers.
Creases,
whereas the Wallabies are still, you know,
wondering what their strongest team is.
No, they know what their strongest team is. They have nothing coming behind, and again, they're not building anything. They're trying to stay above water. It's a sorry state of affairs.
It
really.
is, because they still are capable of mixing it up at the top level, which is like at the top end of their depth chart, as in, namely the first 23 or the first 15 are capable of beating any side in top of the world on their day. For sure. That's not how tournament success is kind of built, and it's I don't know, it's tough. Like, we were talking at length last week about academies and that kind of being the driving force behind a lot of success, a lot of kind of long-term success when you're building something, and it's easy to level that coming from a Leinster perspective because they have one of, if not the best academy in Europe, certainly one of, and it's obviously it's not the case over in Australia. They're fighting with a lot of things, including just the decline in popularity of the sport, and sure, having to close or shut down the Western Force last year is like really a sorry sign.
Shut them down.
Well,
knocked them out of Super Rugby. They played in that ARU tournament, which was won this week by Fiji and Drua, which is their domestic competition was won by the only non-Australian side in it, which is obviously
another great insight into the state of affairs. But it's been a pretty painful last few years for all things Aussie rugby. And as far as the Bledisloe game went, it kind of just illustrated it, because the All Blacks weren't at their accurate selves.
The weird thing about that game is it was a very similar New Zealand Australia game to a lot of them, but I almost was watching it, and my usual enthusiasm was just a bit bored by it. It's just very predictable what was going to happen. I don't think Australia,
even at 57 minutes or something, it was 17-10 to the All Blacks for quite a while after half.
I don't think Australia believed it, to be honest with you. Their scramble D off chaos ball is pretty poor.
Genny is defending in odd chance. I don't know whether I'm prepared to say Genny is defending badly, but he's popping up missing tackles where he shouldn't be, and I don't know whether that's the system or it's him or it's both, but it's like sometimes he just shouldn't be where he is, and
they do find themselves getting narrow, mostly because they lose collisions in around the tight areas of the ruck.
This is it's their tight five, really. It's like their pack in general do not stand up, with the exception of the few exceptional players that they do rave about, rightly so, when you're talking your Pocock and Hooper Pocock and Hooper are quality players, international quality players even, genuinely, but they're the only ones in there.
I mean, Robbie Simmons had a good game at the weekend, and you get occasional good games from Murray Arnold, but generally speaking, with ball in hand they can do stuff, but in defence, or just especially around those fringes, it's a real issue for them. And
they get
the All Blacks,
by the intensity
the All Blacks
too easily.
Also, as good as Pocock is, the All Blacks were quite comfortable at retaining possession the other day, and just
Ireland did a good job of it over the summer in the second test when they had that thing in the week before where they just had Tygburn put on a Pocock scrum cap and have the boys mince him every single breakdown, and on the offensive breakdown just be like
one of their strengths nullified. They can still find tries and score tries, but they always concede some, and ultimately I just don't know if they're physically strong enough to stand up, and that's why right now you have to be thinking of other options. Taniela Tupou is a good asset, but he's a good new acquisition for sure, and his ability to hold up the scrum is great, although he did get monstered by, I think it was Beast and Tawira during he got, like, his neck got really hurt by that. I remember watching that during
I remember
the Rugby Championship.
I
Beast
remember that
some mad jerky motion in the scrum,
and he ended up on the bottom eating a load of turf and then
just getting neck cranked or whatever it was, but he had to go off. But he's a genuine good acquisition, a good on the ball, but also a decent scrummager. But at the same time, it's all like, this is a guy they've just got from Tonga, and at the end of the day, their pack is limited, and that's going to cost them. They are going to be able to score tries, but at the moment, as good as Czech is at rallying guys and getting them together in a camp, there's always, with any team that has a punch, that has an ability to score, there's always that puncher's chance. There's always the chance that they can beat Ireland.
It's better. That's why, like, we were talking about it last podcast about the improved competence in our own domestic competition of the lower level sides, where you would associate teams like Edinburgh or Connacht a few years ago, or even the Italian teams a few years ago, of dragging games down to try and win them by having them be as awful as possible to try and bring the big team down so that maybe you can nick a result. Australia have never been like that, and now the
they try and increase
the chaos, increase the pace,
turn the game into one of like try, and then maybe we come out on top.
It happens a lot with South African club teams as well, actually. So when the Jaguares play any South African domestic team, it always looks chaotic like that, and the fringes are a mess a lot of the time.
In terms of simple stuff they can fix on the field, someone to defend the 13 channel would be nice. Folau at 13 is a silly idea.
It is a silly idea. It's a fundamentally silly idea.
Look, they've tried Reece Hodge, they've tried Karevi, they've tried Kurandrani. I think Karevi out of those three is the best bet for someone who can defend smartly at 13. I've seen him do it a few times for the Reds, but
I think you just, same as putting Curtly to 10, you just lose the whole thing that is the asset of Folau is kind of lost at inside centre, and he's exposed in other areas.
He did score a nice try, as he always does.
He also threw one to Ben Smith, which was that's nice. That was very nice of him. That pass was just never on in a million years. Gave it to Ben Smith, which, as I maintain, if you're an All Black or a Highlander, pass it to Ben Smith is normally the best idea. But if you're Israel Folau wearing 13 for Australia, it's a terrible idea.
I tend to agree. Speaking of Ben Smith and the Flying All Blacks, they did have a good game. They showed some spark. I mean, as you say, they were rusty, but they showed some spark. I think 2 between the leg passes. A nice
one from Mr. Ben Smith, one from Bowden Barrett.
That's correct.
Two quality, classy operators.
Nice try from Squire at the start of the match that I quite liked. Obviously, there was Ben Smith's run as well, which was also quite nice.
I felt bad looking at Curtly Beale putting his head in his hands after missing that tackle on Squire.
Curtly Beale a couple of years ago, I think in fact last year at 12 was one of the best defenders at 12 in the world.
He reminded me of Easton Asiwa for Leinster, whereby he's like not the most physically big guy, but every few plays he'd absolutely crunch someone just by getting his timing just right and making the good read. And
I think he looks overworked.
He does look overworked. It's like looking at the South African players when they return to the Premiership or when they return from the Premiership, Francois Lowe and all this, and they've just been months of solid
This
rugby.
plays into my point of there's no value in bringing him to Europe. There's just none. But I'm sure Cheika will, because he needs results, and Kirtley's his results boy. But it bodes poorly for the World Cup. I mean, a Curtly Beale injury for the World Cup would completely undermine everything Czech has been doing, and it's entirely possible.
So possible, but they're nearly begging for it at this point.
But parking the Wallabies and looking at the All Blacks, I suppose we want to take a broader look at the All Blacks ahead of the World Cup.
This is kind of our point for the podcast, because there's the games are coming up. We're previewing the November tests, but November tests are only a small part of what's going on, because with the except the Wallabies are kind of the exception, but that's a kind of, as we were pointing out, it's a needs must scenario more than anything else. The rest of the teams are all, and this spans tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, they're all kind of looking with a mind towards the World Cup. So I'm curious to see how a lot of them go. Teams like the US this autumn have a few good fixtures, including one against Ireland, which I'm fascinated by. They got Scotland scalp over the summer, so they're pumping a load of money in. Play teams like Georgia. The Georgia-Italy game we were saying is a big.
That's one game that isn't. There are two teams that aren't wholly focused on the World Cup. That's a big game for both sides.
It is. It's very true, actually. But like in general, when you're talking the big teams, the Rugby Championship teams and the Six Nations teams, they're all tinkering, and this November the fixture list feels a bit weird. Like we're playing Italy in Soldier Field in Chicago for the first time, and Wales are playing Scotland in another equally strange fixture. So it's all a bit kind of hodgepodge. The All Blacks are scouting, doing some reconnaissance in Japan, it seems.
Yes, indeed.
And it's all a little bit what's going on, but we all know what's going on. It's that we're a year out from the World Cup, and it's all fine tuning. So the results are kind of. Like, obviously it'd be nice to go all through. Like, confidence is based on evidence, and you want to be winning games. So as much as you can make an argument for, you learn more from a loss than you do from a win, you feel better about having won games rather than lost them as well. So it's like, certainly at this point in the cycle,
there are some teams who care more about winning this than others this autumn. The All Blacks is a reputation thing. In terms of where they are as a side ahead of the World Cup, I've heard musings. I mean, they've lost obviously to the Springboks at home in Wellington. That awful stadium, the Cape Tin, should teach them to play there. And then they obviously went to South Africa looking to put in a marker and prove they're better than them, and just about there goes our light. Just about scraped through that game against South Africa in Pretoria. They just about scraped through, and then now going into autumn, an okay performance against Australia, but you're thinking back and you think, when was the last time they really hit their straps? I mean, they played well against France in June. They did score some pretty tries, but those games were marred by sort of weird refereeing calls that I thought were actually fair at the time, but that was what grabbed the headlines. There were red cards flying about. France played a very weird game, and you just have to wonder where New Zealand are. I mean, they're obviously winning games, they're obviously comfortable. Are they genuinely as good a side as the side that won the World Cup at rampant 100 miles an hour the last World Cup? The side with Conrad Smith and Nonu in the centre, and Dan Carter at 10, and all of these wonderful, wonderful players. A younger Ben Smith, you know.
What a thing that is. Although I really do like this vintage of Ben Smith as well.
No, true. Ben Smith being a poor example, because he's probably the best player in New Zealand at the moment.
Yeah,
but
he's the best player in the world.
Probably.
I don't know who's better.
Like, it's a weird argument because there's props and there's sextons.
I know.
And, you know.
Yeah, I know, but my God, he's just so classy.
He is.
And he's another one. He's the only one I can compare to Brian O'Driscoll in earnest, because I just look at the time he has on the ball and the decisions he makes, and the fact that I've never once seen him butcher a finish at the try line. I've seen a lot of deadly finishers butchered some tries, but I've never seen when Ben Smith's with the ball and over the line, it's try.
Yeah,
it just
true.
is.
Yeah.
Like they have some serious operators. They play. They are the most comfortable in chaos ball at the top of as good as we're saying Australia are in chaos ball. They are the most effective.
Yeah, and off turnover ball, just isolating playing opportunities.
Yeah.
They're so wonderful this year, particularly off turnover ball in their own 22.
Yeah,
they've scored, like, they just released the nominees for the tries of the year, and 2 of them are the All Blacks running it from their own 22. But they have this link up, especially when DMAC is on the pitch, Damien McKenzie, where either DMAC gets the ball and then Barrett is running in behind him, or the other way around. And what usually happens is DMAC will give the ball not to Barrett, but a skip pass off the outside to any one of them, with an overlap outside. It can be a prop
forward, it can be a centre.
And what Barrett or McKenzie will do, even though they're distributors, what they're actually using them as strike runners, because they've such pace, they'll run the inside angle off whoever takes the pass off, whichever one of them was at 10, and the options then, just especially off turnover balls, there's just too many options, and too much pace, and you just you give away the ball and give them that space, they're probably going to score a try. You have to shut them down. You have to charge, and you have to shut them down
protect
early,
your own ball,
and you have to protect your own ball to beat them. So I mean, obviously I think they are the best team in the world, but are they as dominant as they were going to the last World Cup? Is that even the question? I
don't think so.
I'm not sure if they are.
I don't think so.
They've lost more games.
I was worried about their display when the drop goal came. That drop goal issue resurfaced again in the Rugby Championship. It seems like, because that was a learning that Richie McCaw gleaned from years and years ago. And it seems to have been forgotten again. It's drop goals are a part of the game, which is like you win games with you don't win games with 3-pointers, you win them with tries. Broadly speaking, I think that's true, and that's a good, healthy way for a team to approach things. It's not like I like the idea. I always like when New Zealand commentators, like, a game can be 6-3 and then a try goes in and then they call it the first score of the game. I just kind of like that. Whereas that never happens in the Northern Hemisphere. It's always like, and they'll get some points on the board for a 3-pointer. That was really should have been a try a lot of the time, but that being said, there's value in winning the game. See Johnny Wilkinson and countless other examples.
You hear crowds boo about it, and you hear All Blacks talk about playing the try. It was one of the most bizarre things I heard is after they didn't take that try in that match against the Springboks, but after they didn't kick the drop goal, Kieran Reid in post-match was saying, like, we actually thought it was less of a risk to go out wide and score the try than it would be he says there's more that can go wrong in a drop goal play, and
that's crazy.
I thought it was crazy talk as well, but I just think they're looking at it wrong. I think like a drop goal play is a winning play. It's as good as a winning try. It's a game winning play. You need that in your arsenal. It's important. And embrace it. It's like it can be a killer play. It's part of the game. It's one of the tools in your toolbox. It should be. But the All Blacks don't have that, and that is definitely a weakness.
It's a concern because they
are becoming better, in my view, at sort of, and it's the Crusaders' influence as well, but sort of much more scoring tries slower, and that almost sounds like an insult because they have that chaos ball try thing, but they have actually settled down on the ball where they have a load of patterns, and you watch them do it quite often. It is like they move the ball quite quickly, but they take time about it. They actually build phases, unlike all like teams that just like to strike. I mean, a couple of years ago I remember watching them back when the Hurricanes influence was really strong, and it was like, 2 phases, let's try a crossfield kick. And they often came off, but at the same time watching them do almost like the Crusaders job or even the Leinster job of just holding onto the ball and sort of crushing teams,
big men, because their type 5 is as good as any in the world.
Indeed, backing their big men and backing just the nous of the players to constantly just attack weak shoulders. Oh, there's a try on the left. Now we score that.
And they're still the best in the world at recognising that.
Like the Squires try at the weekend was a perfect example. Just scoring very simple, create an overlap, exploit the overlap tries that are like
textbook
rugby, but they're much more proficient and professional at scoring them. They still have a lot of tries in them, and they do move the ball quickly. And
they just have different ways of scoring tries. This is one of the criticism we levelled. If anyone was listening to us in our last season over a year ago, we were very critical of our own Joe Schmidt led Irish team for just not having enough looks to tries. It was always off a line out from either 22 metres out or something, and very rarely off scrums, and they were omitted, never off kick return, which is a big problem, and it was all that kind of stuff. And it's like, you just need to be scoring many kinds of tries to win tournaments, because the tournaments will be comprised of many different kinds of games that take a different look and have a different picture to them. So while it's great being able to rely on a maul try, maybe once you've gone in and pick and jammed and popped it off 9, maybe it's time to flash it left, because there's loads of men out there.
And the All Blacks being so good for so long, I do have had a chance to sort of tweak and get their game, because one of the things that like you always saw whenever you see these like teams and the best teams in the world, you always see like Owen Frank's in a tight head, or if he's not in a tight head, he's like reserve tight head, and Joe Moody was up there for a while. But of all the players in the All Blacks, I was looking, excluding Hooker obviously, I was looking at the two props and thinking, are they really that good? They do, like, their scrum is solid, but it doesn't demolish the Wallabies scrum.
They don't scrummage in a French manner where they're attacking the game. Like,
it's what they have been able to tweak their game. Their line out is now super solid, and their scrum, bringing in Carl Tuinukuwafe, the young man who was a carpenter, I believe, who's now the Breakthrough Player of the Year nominee, and he's a monster scrummager, and it's just another tweak to their
string to their bow,
I guess is the word. But they're like, so they have a very solid set piece. They can score maul tries, they can score slow tries, they can score quick tries. They're looking quite close.
They've definitely in terms of comparisons between that previous team, they've embraced the maul more than that previous team ever did. They've
just embraced being professional in the way they go about things and finding many different ways to score. They also know how to win games, obviously.
They have a bit of, the All Blacks have a winning culture, I think they do.
So in terms of where are they lacking, you've sort of laid out the picture of a perfect All Black team, so as to speak, and yet they are beatable. They have lost games. What are the weaknesses of the All Blacks heading into the World Cup if you're an opposition coach?
Doing topsy-turvy centre partnerships sometimes. Their rotation isn't quite as seamless as it often is. I think their style of play changes drastically depending on who's at fullback, sometimes for the benefit, but I don't know if they entirely kind of like if they're in a game and they're rattled, I don't know if they have full confidence in some of their bench men sometimes to change things sufficiently, but because they don't, it's not tested enough for that to be known. Though the only times you see them beaten is when they get absolutely massacred physically initially, and people put a score on them and then they can't come back.
But they
most
of the time. Most of the time they lose by 1 and they were down by 21.
Indeed, because they were sleepwalking into the game somehow and got mushed by a team that's very, very up. Well, this is it. Like, that's what I wonder, because I'm looking at you're talking weaknesses. I'm wondering about their. Sorry, I'm gonna have a sip, but their back row. I just like, they rotate a lot down there, and they rotate the 6 and 7 jerseys very often, and I'm not convinced. Obviously, Kieran Reid is a wonderful footballer. He's probably my favourite number 8 in the world. I like the idea of having a footballer at number 8. I'm not a huge fan of our own situation here in Ireland of having CJ at number 8. Granted, he does a lot of good big carrying, but I'd much rather, we had Jamie Heaslip before. I like a guy who can read the game and make some interesting plays and uses bulk to create space for others, and CJ just doesn't pass enough, whereas Kieran Reid is excellent in that role. But I'm looking for a number 7. I like in my All Black team, Matt Todd is nearly undroppable. But that's not the All Black team, it seems.
Yeah.
But you know, that's I love the Crusaders pack, and I think Matt Todd's an excellent part of that, an integral part of that.
Yeah.
And he monsters teams all the time. He was excellent at the weekend as well. His tackle on Folau before Folau decided to give Ben Smith his try that he so richly deserved, which was sound for Folau, really. Like
it was a great tackle for sure. They had their defensive breakdown is definitely a real area where you can point and say, well, they don't have a Pocock. They don't have these.
They don't have a poacher.
They don't have a poacher.
Sam Kane does have big steals in him, but he's not a poacher.
And to be fair, if you match them physically, you can put phases through against them. They will let you do that. Their shoot isn't particularly aggressive. They are hardy men around the fringes, not around the ruck fringes. That's actually a weakness again that Conor Murray will tell you.
That's what that's the reason Conor Murray's so effective against them. It's just they don't tend to cover that in their systems. They're very quick to peel out wide, and you can see Aaron Smith drifting off all the time.
But certainly from an Irish perspective, if you put someone like James Ryan in usual bullish James Ryan position, that's the kind of play that they do tend to stop.
Yes,
you know, with their big.
That's where it was. I think it came up during the Lions tour that they were talking about. It was like, I'm always amused when teams come down and say they're gonna get into the All Blacks physically, and it's like, have you met Brodie Retallick?
Yeah, indeed.
And it just means the coach doesn't have to do any motivating this week. You just go like, look what they said about you. Yeah. Go and kill them, and they usually do.
And well, one of the things that we like, as good as they are with ball in hand. That one of the things that the Springboks revealed, it was a wonderful shift in mindset from Rassie Erasmus to get that aggressive blitz defence going from the Springboks, and it did like cut off the All Blacks. The All Blacks, for as much as they have been good at going towards space, especially when they get into the opposition 22, actually they've almost taken a feather out of Ireland's book. They are slow, they are composed, they recognise that this is a chance to score a try, and then they find the try. They don't tend to blow the try as much when they're in the opposition 22. But earlier in the season in particular, when they're in the middle of the park, they do throw loose passes. Yeah. They do sort of make that speculative play from time to time, and the Springboks were brutally good at shutting them down in that way. They led from 13. I think it was excuse me, what's the name of the 13 who was playing there for the first half of that game? Mapu off. It was not. It was the lad from the Sharks who was He was played the first half and then got injured, and then Jesse Creel did just as good a job in the second. But they were launching up from that 13 channel, and they were causing them all kinds of problems. And
I can't remember his name. That's very annoying.
I'll get it for you here. It was Lutanyo Am.
That's right. Yeah,
and no, he was superb, and he shot out of the line, and he made turnover plays. But it was that 13 area that they did get caught by.
Yeah.
Now they were a little off that day in the sense that, as you say, they do play differently with different 15s, and they had Jordy Barrett at 15.
Yeah, which changes things a lot.
And Jordy Barrett, for all of his, on Brother Bowden, he's not really a distributor.
No, he's not.
He's not.
He's more of a traditional fullback. I always think. I think he looks a lot like the Gervin Dempsey mould of fullback, where he sits very deep and runs good lines. But
so with a traditional fullback and a traditional pair of centres, a lot came on Bowden Barrett, and then Bowden Barrett playing from 10 was trying some speculative things, throwing some loose balls, and every mistake that the All Blacks made, the Springboks punished
quick to capitalise on.
The other thing that the Springboks did is match them physically, which is hugely important to beating them. And then you did see they did give up tries, and to be fair, for all you talk about they have a decent defence around the fringes, they do concede tries almost every game. Almost multiple tries every game to every team, seemingly.
Yeah, it seems so. They just like tries.
They just like tries.
They just like try time.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Like it's no problem when you're winning.
Indeed, I guess. But then you lose.
We're just fishing for weaknesses because we're playing in a couple of weeks. You have to fish for weaknesses.
No, but I think this is in terms of like you've laid out what they had, which was this great attacking unit. You've grained out what that was the foundation. Then you built on it. You also have these classy players, but then you built on it with the composed ability to find tries with slow play, with quick play. You built on it again with a great scrum, great line out, better defensive set from the Crusaders that they brought in. And then what's missing? And you're looking at, well, they throw a lot of loose passes, they give up tries off turnovers. They also don't generate enough turnovers of their own for a side that, every turnover that does get generated seemingly is a try. And Brodie Retallick is huge for them in that regard. He's always good for a strip. And then when he makes those strips is when they score tries, and when he's missing from the team, you get less of those strips.
It's much less of a team. They drop off a fair few percentage points when Brody's not in there. He's their very, very exceptional lock. It kind of brings them back down to a level playing field in the pack nearly when he's not there, whereas they tend to be ahead above other packs when he is. So there's definitely fallibility in there. It's not an unbeatable team, as we've seen, because we've seen them
certainly with teams like Ireland and the Springboks in particular, where they're just building and they're so confident. Springboks are just almost the confidence of youth and the confidence of being out there to prove yourself. And Ireland, with the confidence of experience, they've beaten the All Blacks.
England have the calibre of players that can produce a win against them as well, and I maintain that because they I think they do if they pick them. We'll get into England now in a second.
They don't have back row
selections. No, their back row is still a problem. Similar thing, they don't have a specialist number 7, still haven't, and
number 8 really. Like, there's a reason that Brad Shields didn't make the All Black team.
That's true too. Yeah. What are you thinking? But I'm more based on that. The All Blacks have a tendency to not play at their best. They're not very pretty games when they play England. They look more like English games than All Black games.
I don't think England can beat the All Blacks. I think Ireland and South Africa are the two teams that could beat the All Blacks. But then again, you do get wild card games like the Scotland game.
England have more of that historical fear going into a game against England or a game against France. Crazy French team.
I was thinking similar things until I looked at the England squad and was a bit like. We'll get into England. But in terms of where the All Blacks are and what they need to work on, for sure those are elements. And then obviously there's the old school issue, which it hasn't emerged as a problem so much this year.
No,
they won't have to face Conor Murray this year either. But it is that pillar defence of just keeping an eye on the scrum half sometimes in case he just darts through you. Will Genia has had a good time against them, as has Conor Murray over the years. So
did Faf go through this year?
I think so.
No,
Faf doesn't really. He does actually. To be fair to him, but he likes to drift and dictate. He holds defenders rather than
actual. Sell dummy go. There's still that question mark there. But I don't know. Like, it's still a mighty good team.
It's still the best team in the world. But in terms of if you line them,
there's a lot of things that have to go right for their opposition, whoever they may be, before they're in the game, let alone winning it. And it's like. But certainly,
player for player up front, they can be matched by Ireland and South Africa, who are the only two teams I'm mentioning in that bracket at the moment, because I don't think anybody else is quite there. But Ireland and South Africa can match them up front. Ireland and South Africa can shut them down with a big blitz defence. They can create chaos balls. They can score tries. Those are the two teams that can beat them, and those are the two teams that the All Blacks really do have to play at or near their peak to win those games, and or at least. They didn't play at or near their peak, to be honest, when they beat the Springboks in Pretoria, but they have to be careful, certainly, because they can definitely lose those games, and they know prior to being in the semi-final next year they're going to play. Well, they're definitely going to play South Africa. They might end up playing Ireland as well, so they're going to have to think. Gee whiz,
Well, they're prepping for both. That's got the champion mindset is that they're going to have to play everyone anyway if you want to win, which they do. Yeah. So
indeed, look at as far as any team they're as well positioned as any team in the world, but when they're graded on a bar of All Blacks dominance versus everybody else, that's less true. It's All Blacks up here, Ireland and Springboks are here, and then there's other teams who are building. It's big. The field is narrowing, I would suggest, and there are weaknesses there that other teams can attack for sure. And Scotland nearly beat them last November.
Yeah, so Scotland gave them a game. That was good fun.
Yeah.
But for that last play,
that's true. Stuart Hogg
just out of time.
Yeah.
But it was excellent.
It was an excellent game, and to be fair, they were a little depleted and end of year-y, but
it's true.
You got to watch anything. The Scots.
Yeah, be wary of the Scots. The Scots have some scalps in them. Will the Scots beat Wales this week, or not? It won't happen this week because it's next week, isn't it? Oh no, it's this week. They're playing this week.
They're playing this
first game.
The big game this week is England South Africa.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for both. Another rematch. They've played a lot this year. They've seen a lot of each other this year.
They have.
Good for the Saffas this year. It's been a good welcome to South Africa for Razzie.
Yes,
get in there. Beat the English a few times.
Such a good record against England. It's crazy. The England squad.
England can't bully them. That's the problem. England like to bully teams. They can't bully.
I don't know. But I don't even know what England want to be anymore.
No, I don't know if they do either.
I was looking at the England squad. I'm sure I've made this point a million times in the podcast already.
We made it last week. If you're gonna say what I think you're gonna say, which is that they should be picking Brad Barrett at centre and that they should be picking Alex Good at fullback.
Yeah.
You're of course right, and you did also say it last week. But it's gonna need to keep being said.
I just looked at the squad, and then it's just what was crazy to me was that I googled it. I was so curious because maybe I'm crazy. If you're English and you're watching this and you think that it's justified that Brad Barrett never makes the England squad ever, talk to me. Tell me why, because he's the only 12 in the country who can defend.
Don't extol the virtues of Ben Teo to us. We're Leinster fans. We know already we don't want Ben Teo.
Yeah, so I was looking at that squad. I saw Ben, as far as 12s in the actual team, Tuolangi's at 13, Henry Slade's hardly at 12, Owen Farrell's hardly at 12, but 12. I guess he's going to play there. And then Ben Teo is the only actual natural 12 in the team. And I'm thinking, what about Brad Barrett? I watch him every week. He's a very, very intelligent defender and a ruthless one at that. He hurts people. He does cracks actually people in the ribs.
I've seen people tackle him and go down.
Yeah,
he's a very tough dude.
Big physical tough guy.
He has a plate. Doesn't he have a plate in his jaw somewhere? He had a surgical. He has some kind of metal thing. Can't go through metal detector in the airport.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. He's tough as nails. He's pretty good on the ball. He's been playing in that Saracens team for years.
He's perfectly, especially when you have that system like you're talking about. Don't have your second playmaker at 12. Have it at 15. Like the second distributor at 12, originally an Australian idea, is an excellent idea for some teams, not for an England team. England rugby. Team. Like that's why we were loving Saracens because they play. Yes, they're a little franchisey as a club, sure, but they play an exciting brand of rugby and a very English brand of rugby using English players. They bought even when they're buying players, they hoover them up from other clubs and use English players, and just their style of play is all about physical dominance and speed, but like a lot of their tries
and innovation, to be fair. But it's rugby league.
It can be a little bit rugby league, but it involves smashing yourself over the gain line, which is a huge part of the game in England. And if you're playing your best 10 at 12, you're making your team really soft, and you're like, they don't have the hard-nosed carries, and like the subtlety is kind of lost as well because like they just.
I tell you what, I was watching that England South Africa first test from the June series, and I mean I loved the game. I was actually over in London when I watched it. It was great fun. I was really buzzing to see the Springboks come back into it, but when they raced to that lead, they really looked like a tier 2 team. They were sort of doing. It was like watching Japan put it up to a tier 1 team, in the sense that in the early parts of the game they just sort of blitzed, put some clever moves together, some clever innovations, caught the Springboks napping quite a bit, did some nice little moves, some nice Mike Brown flicks, and they dotted the ball down in the corner a few times. It was clever, but they just looked so weirdly slight, and they were like all trying to run around the corner and expose them on the outside first phase, and when that came off great, and when it didn't, there weren't too many other tricks. And then when the Springboks got into the game, the Springboks, as we know this year, are a bloody good team, but when they got into the game, the power difference. Dwayne Vermeulen catches the ball on the 22 and just runs, and it's 3, 4, 5 guys to stop him. Nobody stops him. He dots the ball down. Faf de Klerk perping players out of his way. Faf was brilliant that day. He really was. Andre Pollard again.
Perping Marrow, I told you.
After getting after getting those early tries, I don't think England won a single collision for the rest of the game, and South Africa were just sprinting through them. I mean, it was men v boys. It looked like a World Cup.
We're living in where England are a non-physical team, but that's what's being created when you have a George Ford at 10 and have your best 10 at 12.
And I have to say, Owen Farrell, I've never seen him play a good game at 12. Even for the Lions, when him and Sexton was the right call to put them together, even for the Lions, he wasn't half the force that he is at 10. It was worth putting him there because he's so good, and Sexton's there.
The other, they didn't, Henshaw got injured, so he was no longer an option. Everyone was calling for Teo to be the option. I maintain Teo is not an option because he's not a good enough player.
But also, it was done to keep Farrell in the team and accommodate Sexton,
which is using your weapons. It's kind of like we were discussing the Wallabies. The Wallabies approach is being the only one that's not built on squad depth, but it's just what are our assets? Use our assets.
Yes,
and it's the same idea. So it's like our assets are, we do have Johnny Sexton and Owen Farrell, 2 of the best playmakers in this hemisphere, in the same squad. Let's get them on the pitch at the same time.
And which is fair, and it ended up working. But also, interesting little tidbit back to New Zealand before we pivot right out of them. Just one thing I forgot to mention to New Zealand is that they got caught in that Lions tour by a dummy screenplay. One of those screenplays where it's not a dummy, but you pop it to the short ball runner. They got caught for their try in the second test by that. Jamie George ran through. They did again against Australia twice. Get caught by that short runner. So they got to watch out for that short ball. Got to watch out for that short ball.
You've got to be minding the short ball.
But moving back to England, in terms of how they assemble their back line, it makes no sense to me. It's just two slide up the middle, and like that is why you say they can beat the All Blacks. I say they can't. I say Sonny.
No, but I maintain they can. But it involves picking your the same team that beat the All Blacks.
Oh yeah, well,
is still playing today.
But that's not.
We said it last week. We're saying just go.
But that's
Farrell
not
in
England.
10, Barrett to Alagi, insert winger here, but have Alex Good at fullback.
Insert Chris Ashton. Alex Good, and choose Johnny May, or just have your Johnny May if you like, and then have Elliot Daly on the wing or on the bench. But like that is a phenomenal but in terms
team.
of
and it's direct.
like
it's Tuilagi and Barrett are direct, and you have your second playmaker out wider, so you can use your strike runners because they have excellent strike runners out wide as well. You don't need to be fumbling around with the ball on the inside. That's a wallaby game based on depth and speed and getting around teams rather than through them.
And as far as in offense, it's not particularly working. It can work. They can get outside teams. In defence, it's a disaster. It's a disaster. And
I feel bad for Farrell. Like, there's so many shots of him getting run over, but he's not a 10. Like, he's not a 12. And like, he's a 10 who needs protecting in the defensive system, which can be accommodated for if you pick the right team. But instead, he's defending in the 12 channel.
It all seems to be done to be accommodating George Ford, who's in my mind a club level 10. And
in my mind, he's lesser 10 than Danny Cipriani, which is the thing.
That's a whole other issue. But he's banned now anyway for nothing.
I know.
And
we maintain on this podcast that was nothing.
Indeed. But in terms of how they're assembling their backline defensively, it's now going to be Tuilagi at 13. It's good to see Tuilagi and Ashton back in some of that old school English thing. Tuilagi makes a break, Ashton runs off him. There's tries to be had there for sure.
Ashton's support lines is definitely an asset to be added to that.
Turn line breaks into tries. That's the Ashton way. And Tuilagi though has, especially, like we talk about ball in hand, there is greater option there. It's certainly better than someone like Henry Slade with the two weaklings. But without the ball, it's a heck of a job for him at 13.
He has to mind people inside and out him.
He never built a reputation as a world class defender, and now he's really going to have to show it, because I think the Boks are going to be gunning for those two boys inside him and outside him and all over the place. He's going to be pulled left and right and inside and outside. So it's going to be a heck of a challenge for him to see if he can shut them down.
Yeah, because it'll need to be intelligence, because he's not that physically dominant over the Springbok players. Like, he maybe has a couple of notches on him. He's a big, strong guy.
It's probably going to be Delindy Creel. I mean, he's probably the strongest of the centres
on the pitch, but I think it's more marginal than, like, yes, I can see him running in tries against Japan or something easily, and I can see him easily minding and chaperoning those channels, even with that combination inside of him and against those calibre of opposition. But I don't know. It's for all intents and purposes a new combination because it's been that long. It needs time to settle again. But it is the time to be doing it. I'm just bemoaning, like, Alex Good is another one. Like, we were talking about like Brad Barrett, and I still mention he's 32 years old. Like I said last week, he has another World Cup in him.
That was my point. I think I got tailed off on him, but I was saying, like, when I saw Brad Barrett wasn't in the squad and Ben Teo was, I sort of googled a bunch of things about Brad Barrett. All the responses seemed to be Bowden and all this. Brad Shields, Bowden Barrett, and like, it was like the man never existed. And then I googled, has he retired from international rugby? Is that what's gone on? It seems to me that nobody has ever written an article in the English press about Brad Barrett not being picked for England, which he hasn't been for years. And to me, it's just mental. He's a very, very good player. But
he was on the pitch when they beat the All Blacks. Does no one remember anything?
He was.
And it's like, no, the English press would sooner talk about Teo's back or Ford and Farrell,
which just seems the
Cipriani.
It's like
the main headline about that squad is that Cipriani's not included.
What's crazy to me is that they do appreciate Saracens, and he's a big part of that team. But I mean, we could make that point till the cows come home.
I know.
And it wouldn't make much.
Wouldn't make any difference because Eddie Jones still.
And as far as their pack is concerned, I briefly mentioned earlier on their back row, and then their front row is a bit.
Are they going to pick Itoji in the back row so that they can have their three locks on the pitch, kind of like what the Springboks did over the summer.
Brad Shields at 8. It's all a bit meh.
Who's stealing the ball from them?
Brad Shields, I guess.
No, he's not. He's on the wing.
He's on the wing.
He's on the wing, flicking inside passes, man.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. Like, that's what I say when I look at them. Not only do I think that the pieces aren't put together right, but I think that Eddie Jones is getting it wrong. And Yeah, I
don't know.
I'm happy to be wrong. You never know. There's a lot of talent there.
Well, this is what's the mitigating thing. It's the same thing when you level criticism. I regard our criticisms of both England and France as to be in their own little bracket, independent of the Ireland-New Zealand model, where the countries are kind of similar size and you're dealing with a smaller playing population, so it has to be kind of a more streamlined thing from top to bottom.
Yeah.
Whereas in England and France, they can be absolutely making a mess of things for vast, large periods of time, and still on the day or in the tournament throw it all together and have it work because they just have that many world class players.
It's true,
and it's like that's always going to be a thing. But the argument against it is we're saying rugby's grown so much that teams that are building things, that you have a history and you have a tradition and you've built on top of that, that's the argument that we're looking for in terms of the winners.
Certainly whatever happens this November, as far as like, there's so many factors that go into a single performance, especially like in Twickenham, backs against the wall, Eddie Jones is under pressure.
Yeah,
they can always pull stuff out of the fire. They can always, like when they get a head of steam up and they do start offloading and they do start playing well.
I don't necessarily think any of our criticism is wrong, even if they win.
No, but my whole point is that when I'm looking here at their squad, is like, it's not necessarily a squad that's a disaster for this November, but I think it points to a third consecutive unsuccessful World Cup for them, because I just don't think they're doing it right. And I just think ultimately, whether they like whatever about meeting the All Blacks in Twickenham on their third week of a 4-week run that includes a match against the second team the next week after, who they really want to beat, like whatever about that, when they meet the All Blacks in we want to win the World Cup mode, or the Springboks in we want to win the World Cup mode, or whoever they have in the group, even Argentina in we want to win the World Cup mode,
very different beast.
I think that I think they're going to struggle. I just don't think they're doing enough right. I just don't think there's enough top class players. Even in the pack, I'm looking at it, it's a lot of these guys it's good in the sense that they've given guys a chance to step up, which is definitely a good thing. Yeah. But I'm just not convinced that there's a world class team in the country. I'm not convinced that Eddie Jones is going to find it, I guess.
Right. Well, it's an interesting kind of quandary for him, and we'll see how it goes. I do maintain that their future in the back line should be with a playmaker at 15, not at
and just a pair of solid defensive centres.
And Farrell at 10, because I want to see that mature, because it's like we love looking at Sexton these days, and it's like, let Farrell do that, because Saracens are a great team, and they're all built on that mould, and it is very direct in the centres, and like even theirs is even kind of slightly different from England, because Brad Barrett is your hard nose at 12, and it allows outside and Lazowski to play the wide men in.
If Ireland, it'd be almost the same, because Sexton did play a couple of games at 12 and Rog was around. It'd be almost the same thing as if Ireland, if Robbie Henshaw didn't exist, or was still a fullback,
or
and Ireland's
was
solution
playing
to that
for Leinster
problem,
and doing really well week in week out, but wasn't being picked for the Ireland squad.
Better again,
because
Robbie Henshaw's being ignored, a la Brad Barrett, and then we've decided, let's imagine this is a universe where none of the Paddy Jackson stuff happened. We decide to put Paddy Jackson at 10 forever, unavailable, can't lose his jersey, that calibre player, and move Sexton, one of the best out halves in the world, out of position to 12 to accommodate Paddy Jackson and ignore Robbie Henshaw. It's that wild. I just think, we keep mentioning it because it's the wildest thing going on in Test rugby at the moment, the ignoring of Brad Barrett for the sake of this mishmash with George Ford at 10, with one of the best 10s in the world not allowed to play 10. It's just crazy talk.
Nuts. I'm sick of looking at it, to be honest. That's why I'm not letting it go any longer, because what's going on, there's a perfectly good option there, and his name is Brad Barrett, and just because he plays with him week in week out. There's a telepathy there, I know. It's screaming at me, and then it was very illuminating to Google it and find a load of Brad Shields articles and stuff. And it's just like no one's thinking this. Why not?
Are we crazy? We are alone in the void, screaming into the void that Brad Barrett's a world class player. I guess
maybe, I don't know. But that's England anyway. South Africa are kind of doing the right thing and experimenting. They might lose some games.
I think it's sort of by necessity. They're one of the teams, for example, who won't sweat losing in November. They always lose in November, and they just won't sweat it. It's a good little experiment for them. They do have Willie Leroux in the squad. They don't have Faf in the squad. Faf has been running the show for them this year.
That's an interesting
so it's a good chance for, first of all,
Razzie wants to look with. I think Faf is his World Cup scrum half, and he's decided that from day one. Which was right. Correct. We were watching Super Rugby the last couple of years and going, Christ, on you. Why? Look at Faf. Oh, that guy, he's going to slot in for 10 against the Japanese.
Oh, that was so
for a while.
funny. Yeah.
Scoring loads of tries.
For me, to my mind, he's the behind Murray and Aaron Smith, he's the third best scrum half in the world. And what I love about that dynamic is that the three of them are so different.
Yeah.
But the way I've heard him described as a soccer fan described him. He was just watching. He was an English fan online. Was watching one of the Test series against South Africa over the first two games. And he was saying like Faf de Klerk is just a Tony Kroos of rugby. He's just sitting back, floating around the pitch, picking the perfect pass, playing people into the game. Yeah. He's glorious to watch. Yeah. But he's gonna and as far as the other guys,
as well.
Ivan Van Ziel and Ambrose Papier, that's none of their games.
Yeah.
So in terms of who's going to replace him, the style's going to have to shift instantly. A lot more pressure on Andre Pollard. If they don't pick Leroux, which would be a real baptism of fire in a sense for Andre Pollard. I know he has a lot of caps, but to put him in there as sole distributor, if they don't pick Leroux, if they pick someone like Willemse, who is another distributor but is also a young man, if they go for that, I think that'll be a great experience for Pollard to actually get the freedom to run a backline on his own and see what he can do with Delindi and Creel outside him. I think if they're going to win matches, I think they're probably going to win them up front, and Andre Pollard will stick to his boot.
Or like he doesn't mind a collision as well, which is good for a South African 10. I maintain.
Yeah,
what was a huge part of the problem with Yankees.
Himself and Faf link well. Faf can run things. And there's no passivity with Faf.
But it's like if it goes wrong and he's getting bad ball out to him, he doesn't mind going through the contact, and they don't mind going through the phases.
If anything, he does it a bit too often.
He probably does it a bit too often, but I think that's erring on the right side for a South African 10 rather than sitting way deep and kicking it aimlessly to All Blacks or throwing speculative passes.
Yankees is in the squad.
I know that. Don't you think I know that? Yes, I know he's not going anywhere for the time being, but I don't know. He's just stylistically, he changes things too far.
I don't know. It seems to me like Willemse is being weaned in as the backup.
I would hope so. Because
and obviously like guys like Kerwin Bosch or
mate, why don't we just
Korea.
We're being crazy. We should pick Pollard at 12. Get Lindy out of there so that we can play Yankees in 10.
Yeah, honestly, we're never going to stop.
I can't believe I haven't seen this until now. We should be doing that. They should get Razzie on the phone.
Never stop making that point.
It's as far as point.
As far as what they've got going on up front, there's there's still a lot of muscle in there. I believe Khaleesi's leading them in there, and I believe Dwayne Vermeulen is back as well.
Good.
Which will be interesting. I think they're resting the beast, which just means more of that ginger maniac kits off at loose head.
Yes, yeah.
And
he's a quality scrummager. Actually, he's really good.
Fantastic scrummager. I know he looks Irish as the day is long, but he's not. He's a big Springbok, and he's a superb player. Yeah, really, truly a superb player. And teams are not going to be looking forward to face their pack. And this is where I'm looking at the young English lads from Exeter and Bath and thinking, boys, you've never actually played a hungry Springboks before. The very hungry Springboks. And I think as far as it was so chaotic in South Africa, balls flying everywhere, Faf was running the show. It's going to be a very different, very more traditional Springbok side that comes to Twickenham. Usually in years gone by, in recent times, they win those games, the Springboks, and I think that it's a good challenge for them to go and do it again. I think Razzie will be setting them that, saying something similar. This is a very good challenge for you to go and win in Twickenham.
Benchmark stuff,
to go and do it up front.
Yeah,
to rely on those big men. They have endless names in the second rows.
They need to rediscover that side of themselves, because for too long
they are rediscovering it. I think now
they're still taking some plays off.
That's true.
They still do that. We're talking about strengths and weaknesses of teams. South Africans take plays off.
Yeah, it's a huge weakness.
That results in a try.
Very often. I mean, but I think it's one of those plays, or a couple of them in the All Blacks game in Pretoria, probably ultimately cost them it. Yeah. They did not take plays off for the last two tries. They were trying to defend, and the All Blacks got through them. Yeah. But after, I think twice after scoring, they immediately conceded after that.
Kickoffs and things.
It was like, guys, it's not the game to do that. Yeah. But they do it every game. Seemingly. Even the game they beat the All Blacks, they give up soft scores.
And they do. But the club teams all do as well. I don't know where it's coming from.
I think it'll be weaned out. I think he's trying to wean it out anyway. And as for this tour, it's going to be a test for their pack, but also a test to just try and test combination. I'd be very surprised to see the same starting 15 start 2 weeks in a row for them. I think this is very much, the public has settled down. They've beaten the All Blacks. They then put it up to the All Blacks. They've
kind of appeased certain things.
They've appeased things,
and now they're adjusting. They're on track to challenge in the World Cup again.
Yeah.
I think.
So but I don't think the media or the public are going to get on their backs for a couple of losses in November, which doesn't necessarily mean that they will lose. lose. But what it does mean is that they're going to be more relaxed and more contemplative, and the antithesis of where Australia are. They're not determined to win games. They are sort of thinking about tweaking things and testing combinations, and they don't have a game against Ireland or something that they have to madly worry about getting humiliated or something like that. They're going to be competitive in all their games, and they're going to get to test things and try things, and I think they're purring along very nicely for next year.
I do too. This is it's a good sign. We're fans of the Springbok brand on this podcast, and we want to see it return. Because we've been seeing more of it in an Ireland jersey over the last few years than we have in the Springbok one, so it's good to see them back. And Razzie is a man who definitely, is in living memory, remembers what it's like for a Springbok team to win World Cups.
He's everything that they needed, and everything that Alistair could see, just wasn't seeing. He is seeing, and he's also a bit bullish. Like, he has that Springbok thing. He's like, I predict, he's going to have his moments with the media as times go by. If one of his boys
wasn't he throwing absolute hissy fits in the coach's box at one point? He was rivaling Cheka Khan,
totally.
Khan for one of the games. Which game was it?
Sweating it against the All Blacks in both games anyway.
But it might have been against Australia that he was throwing the toys out of the pram, and it was like literally Razzie's cam was more interesting than Cheka's cam at the moment. What's going on?
I think if one of his boys does something dirty, like picks someone up and drops them on their head, Razzie might be in the kind of mood to go back him to the gills, a la Peter de Villiers, where it's just renouncing all sense to do it.
Which game was it that your man overthrew the line out and they conceded a soft score?
Oh, that was the Australia game.
That was the Australia. That was when I was thinking.
He
took him straight off.
That was
a rage quit.
Like, we're just like in sync with remembering this stuff. But what actually happened was in the Rugby Championship this year, I believe it was when they were away at Australia, they had built a 10-point lead. They ended up losing this game. They had built a 10-point lead. They were going fine, and then they just about, I think, defended and tackled Australia into touch, and just needed to exit, and basically the half would be over. And Bongi Mbonambi, who had been starting over Malcolm Marx in a sort of a twinker play, twinker play.
I don't know about that one.
That's one of my new tinker play. Twinker play.
We have all about neologisms here on the Rugby podcast.
In sort of a tinker play, he had rotated Malcolm Marx out of the starting team and onto the bench, and brought in Bongi Mbonambi, who threw the ball wildly over the line out, and also nobody jumped. It was not just his fault. It was a miscommunication.
Fault, but he came straight up.
Nobody reacted to it, and Tamua just popped it up and touched it down, and Razzie just lost it and took him off, brought on Marks, and probably wrecked the guy's confidence, but he is still in the squad. It was an absolute rage.
Has he started since?
No, I think it's all been Malcolm Marks since then, but no, he's on the bench. He's still there.
It was so funny though, that moment. In any case, they've moved on. They've actually made significant progress and strides since then. It's been a very good year for them.
And I think, like, considering how despairing I was when Alistair Coetzee was around when we last left the podcast last season.
We had a few videos about what is the future of Springbok,
and I was always looking in optimism, just looking to put these pieces together, and they're so great.
The players are so good,
and Razzie knows, and Razzie's doing, and they're as big a threat as any side heading into the World Cup. For sure.
Big being an operative word there as well. They're
truly
huge, man. So that is by far the most interesting game of the weekend. Is England South Africa. We'll just run quickly through the other ones. We have Japan New Zealand, which is going to be an ass whooping. It's New Zealand all the way. My only big question is, are Japan going to go the same crazy, or are we going to see some of those crazy advertisements that we saw last week in the Bledisloe one, that was like CGI graphics on the pitch / on the players' shoes and jerseys?
It was projections onto a green screen is what it must have been, except the green screen was the pitch, and they were just
occasionally Curtly Beale. And all the All Blacks, like half the backline were wearing green boots, which was very funny because it just kept
every time. I think it was one time Curtly walked into where the graphic had been projected onto the pitch for the audience, that you could just see right through Curtly Beale. He was just an invisible man with just his head there on top.
It was ridiculous, to be honest. And will they just paint the pitch like everyone else?
Well, they did. I think they actually stopped.
They did in the second half. I noticed that. I was watching it going like, they stopped it. It's a silly idea. It is a silly idea.
Just paint it on.
It's
brushes.
I know. Get the boys out there to paint the AIG logo or whatever you want up there. But as far as the game's concerned, I think that's one of the more interesting questions that I have, because the game is just going to be straight up ass.
I guess just how valuable is this going to be for the All Blacks? This 2
I
weeks.
question that. I don't know. I don't know.
Does it mean anything?
They're just
Probably
getting
means
contest.
something.
Yeah, like I like the idea. Like I do put a lot of stock in visualization and that kind of thing for athletes. So things like just seeing what a stadium feels like over there, having an experience walking out, having experienced the food, the customs, the culture, the weather, all of that kind of stuff.
It'll
is
all
what
be
they're
different
looking at.
next year, though. The eyes of the world will be on them. It's such a different
I
thing.
know. I think
it's just trying to add
it's very
percentages.
canny. It is. Yeah, it's top 2% percentile kind of thing. Is it the most important thing? No. By any stretch, no.
Certainly, I don't.
Does it mean they're going to win the World Cup off the back of it? No, it's not
They
doing
might win the
anything.
World
So
Cup, but
they might win the World Cup, but I
certainly
wouldn't
don't
credit
think that
this.
No, indeed, that was my point. If they win the
Yes,
World
like,
Cup next year, we're
because
not going to be going, it's all because last year they went and played a couple of games in Japan. But that said, interesting option
Yes,
to go for that.
it's very, very, very All Black, to be honest.
I think Japan, for all the tier 2 teams, are one of the teams that are almost entirely focused on next year. They've had some up and down games, some ding dong games this year.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be, it's going to be a great occasion to host the All Blacks. I'm not sure if they've ever done it before.
I don't know.
So they'll obviously
the pre-match pageantry will be there.
It'll all be there. But at the end of the day, I think while this will be a good day out, next year is so huge for them. It's all about next year. And I don't know if we can read anything into what Japan how many points Japan end up shipping next week, nor can read anything into the All Black side.
How many tries they run in.
Yeah.
It's a bit facile, but it will be a great occasion and I will watch it.
Absolutely.
Wales-Scotland, a very curious Six Nations game inserted into the November internationals, where there'll probably be a bit of jigging around and it's tough to know who's...
Scotland are a lot more settled than Wales these days, but now they have points to bring in who are just playing well, like Magnus Bradbury and some of these boys from Edinburgh who are going so well that you're like, Edinburgh are such a hefty pack this year. Like they have the opposite problem of Wales in the sense that all of their sides are going well, even Racing and Thurmond.
Yes, those great Scottish sides.
And Newcastle with with your man Farrell. What's his name? He's not Farrell.
No, he's
not.
Chris
Harris.
That's right. Yeah.
But every team that a Scottishman is playing in is going well. They have a good healthy mix between Glasgow and Edinburgh. They have great halfbacks. If they pick their full side, it's a very strong side. Obviously it's been a while since they've been together with Gregor, and
actually the Scarlets, but Barkley hasn't been playing. That's probably
Barkley hasn't been playing.
So they need to get a Scot in there and watch the Scarlets form return.
Yeah. So they're going to have a much stronger scrum. Edinburgh have the strongest percentage scrum in the Pro 14.
Yeah,
they're going to have a solid scrum. They actually have options at second row. I like Grant Gilchrist and Johnny Gray personally, but they could throw a Toulouse in there.
Toulouse, yes, he's a good player.
There's they have options. They have obviously a great back row. Hamish Watson is a great turnover artist, and obviously a backline that can run in tries. Defensively, they can be a bit shaky. They're still Scotland. They're still that crazy unknown game is still going to emerge. Yeah. The bigger question for me is what do Wales look like and what do they do and what do they want to do? Scarlets have been so out of form this year as compared to how they were last year, and their whole team was built on Scarlets. Do you fancy Warren to do what Wayne Pivac can't seem to do at the moment to get the boys to gel?
They do overperform in Welsh jerseys. That I don't know whether I can credit Warren with it, or that they just want to be playing for Wales more and they believe in their region sometimes, certainly with the Ospreys, I don't know, but they do seem to have a little hokey thing over Scotland that leads me to believe they could,
especially in the Millennium Stadium.
There's some history there of Scotland just capitulating in their wake, but it's hard to reach, looking at the form of the Welsh sides at the moment and just wondering where it's coming from, to be honest. Their physicality in the centres is one avenue to success I definitely see, because I think Hugh Jones, as exciting a player as he is going forward, is a bit suspect defending in the 13 channel.
Dunbar 12.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say. It's like Dunbar can be a lot of the glue in that, in just shoring that up in the centres. But even with him there, the Jonathan Davis and Parks combo opposite them are bigger, stronger men.
But slower.
Yeah,
speed versus strength.
Yeah,
that's rugby. Jay Davis has had his issues in defence. As much as we love him, Hadley Parks has definitely had his issues in defence.
Yeah.
So I think both centre partnerships.
He's also had a bit of aimless kicking. He's added some aimless kicking to his game this season that I'm not a fan of at all. Where they just go through three phases, and then Hadley Parks toe pokes it down the field.
We were guilty certainly of pushing that second distributor thing, and we still do believe in it for a backline. It absolutely has to work.
You need to have two distributors in the backline.
This idea of like teams just following the trend and trying to force your 12 to be something he's not, it sort of bothers me. I mean, I feel like that's been coached in Taddy Parks' game. He's if you want to pick your lump, pick him and have him be a lump and run and do smashy things.
Yes.
And as far as like, I think go forward ball, they could have a lot of fun. I think both centre partnerships are going to fancy running at each other.
Exactly.
But it's probably like, it's as much as we love the Wales Scotland games in the Six Nations, this is going to have a feel of a game with nothing on it. I suspect.
Yeah,
you could see some knock-ons.
There's nothing on it really.
There's nothing on it. That's exactly right.
That's
almost going to look like a World Cup warm-up game. It's just so out of kilter to be playing a Six Nations team, especially like at least the Ireland game is in Chicago. It has that kind of thing going for it.
That being said, Joe Schmidt's only arriving tomorrow.
It's just like, but this like the Wales Scotland game to me is going to look like a World Cup warm up game. Like I don't know what the combinations are going to be, who they're going to try out. For those who don't know, we're shooting this before the teams are named. So
as we're shooting this, it's Tuesday evening, or well, it's actually it's now Wednesday morning, but it's late and. But we're a little behind as far as who the teams are going to be. We have the squads though, and it's more inferring based on that, and that's kind of our broad stroke points were just that teams are kind of looking forward. We're looking kind of through this fixture list onto the World Cup.
And from Wales's perspective, broadly speaking, outside of this game, it's a great opportunity for Gatland just to like. They're changing styles. They were changing styles a bit in the Six Nations. They finished second as far as the world rankings are concerned. I think they're still third.
Yep.
You know, they still have a lot to offer. They beat the Springboks. People forget that they had that game against the Springboks in America somewhere. It was like in Boston or something. Razzie's first game before the England test. They played Wales and Wales beat them. Yeah, it was a bit of a random game, but Wales having a good record, obviously have a lot of good players. And a chance for Warren Gatland again, just to like, it's very early, as much as Warren Gatland has been there forever, the shift that took place last year needs to be built on.
It was positive. It was more akin to Welsh rugby,
and it
feels
feels
like
my
problem with the Gatland Wales team for so long is that it's I like traditional Welsh rugby, like what we were talking about with French rugby last week, and it was like great to see Toulouse back playing some French rugby, and it's like French rugby is such an obscure term because if you just watch the top couture, you'd be thinking French rugby is slow and smashy smash, but it's not. And it's indeed. Same with Warren ball. It's like Welsh rugby's always about isolating space and great playmakers.
Who are you back at 10 if you're Warren Gatland?
Well, to be honest, I like Patchell, but he's not been playing all season.
He's in the squad.
He's in the squad, I know, but I like Patchell as a distributing playmaker kind of buzz, because I rate the players outside them to be making things, and I just think with the speed of the ball that he gets from those nippy scrum halves, they're all a similar mould of scrum half. I don't really rate an idea of a game built around playing off 9 too often. I'd rather play off 10, and I like Patchell as that distributing option when he's given time on the ball.
Right. What about when he isn't?
Yeah, that's a problem. You know, he gets a bit chaotic when he isn't.
Whereas Bigger has more of a head on his shoulders.
Bigger has more of a head on his shoulders. Bigger kicks the ball a lot. Kicks the ball a lot. And I don't necessarily like a Welsh team that kicks the ball a lot. Because I think they can use the ball, they can score great tries. Like even their teams that struggle physically, Cardiff's run in tries all the time, and even the Dragons can execute a play with ball in hand.
They have one player who can execute a play.
Jordan Williams is great. But they can score a try when it's on sometimes.
When Jordan Williams gets the ball
in space. But no, like Welsh backs by and large are used to running the ball in. It's true. So Bigger kicks it a little too much for him.
No, that's fair enough. It's very fair, in fact. And that fullback again is a big question mark. Are they going to stick with Halfpenny, or is Hanscom going to get another go? Like, what are they going to do there? And that remains to be seen. It all remains to be seen. It's a very much an in-betweeny week, but a good chance to just sit back and set the stall out and see where all the teams are.
I mean, did we preview Ireland, Italy? We didn't really.
We didn't. No, we'll take a look at it.
I don't know what to expect. I'm not overly keen on our prep for it.
I don't like Joe Schmidt not travelling with the boys and now coming over later when the boys have already been out in Chicago for a bit. He's been staying home with the senior players, and it very much feels like an A team. that said, the positive aspect of it is that like there is this culture of professionalism. There is these opportunities for guys to make their way into the first team.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's probably going to be the last chance for some of these guys to play the All Blacks.
Is that going to mitigate the complacency argument, which is feels like what you're making is like, will they be complacent and caught cold in Chicago by
different,
by a ruthless Italy?
Like as much as like even if it was for a Grand Slam day when people aren't going to be complacent, it would be off-putting if Joe Schmidt was in another country than the boys for a couple of days midweek. You'd be like, wait, what?
Yeah,
and
no, it's true.
And like that's all that it is.
Touch of hubris about it.
Touch of hubris about it. True, is absolutely right.
Yeah.
And Italy, they can score tries. Are they as good as Ireland? I don't think so. Are they going to be just like, I think they might put it up to Ireland, but are they going to be able to beat a team that is so much more physical than them and so much more experienced than them, and which is better techers and better everything? Really, I just find it hard to believe.
Well, I do think if they put it up to us in a game, that's what I fear for Georgia next week. If they manage to be in a game at 60 minutes with Ireland in Chicago, and then they have the Georgia game.
I think the worst thing for them could be to be a little bit happy after the Ireland game. No, maybe, truly, I don't know if they want to be happy after the Ireland game. I think if they get absolutely spanked, then they can get back in. Conor O'Shea can start, motivating the boys and whatever. Like Italy's best performances over the last few years have come out of nowhere. They've never come from a foundation. They've always just been randomly there.
No ruck.
Yeah, foundation of no ruck.
No ruck laws.
Yeah, but nobody saw that coming.
No.
And
it's just not rugby, man. There's no
it's not a game of rugby. Yeah.
It's difficult when you don't play rugby.
Yeah. Eddie Jones, the madman.
I know.
But as far as Italy are concerned, like it's a fun day out, I guess. And for Ireland as well, it's just a fun day out. Like for me, it seems like Joe Schmidt never wanted this game, doesn't really want much to do with this game.
Yeah.
This game is the brainchild of the execs in the IRFU.
It is. It's very much
else.
An IRFU thing. It's like, well, if we go to Soldier Field again,
money.
Think of all the money we could make.
Indeed.
And that seems to be it. So Jack Conan, away you go.
Conan, like, I don't fancy going out to America 2 weeks before the All Black game. But Joe, the money.
So yes, we're playing Italy in a pointless game that is
already being described as on this Saturday.
Yeah, that is the long and the short of it.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Interesting tidbit. Ian McKinley has been tipped to play.
I just saw that on the notes there as well. Yeah, McKinley, that would be a lovely thing to see him out there playing against Ireland. Yeah, he's a former Leinster man and a really great story. Actually, one of the IRFU's non-finer moments until they remedied that recently.
Very strange moment indeed.
Because
if you ever look up the story of Ian
McKinley's a fascinating one actually from a rugby standpoint. He's one of the few guys. He was blinded in one eye in an accident, a freak accident, I think when he was horse riding or something.
Yeah, he had been a Leinster player.
He'd come through the academy, played a few games for the senior team at 10, looked a very tasty prospect, and then went blind in one eye from a total accident and had to retire. And then a few years after his retirement, it was announced that he was signed by Treviso, and he still plays for Treviso.
Yeah, he got these special goggles.
Yeah, sports goggle things that are perfectly legal, and they allow him to play rugby, which is great. But they were, for some reason, prohibited in the IRFU's.
The IRFU's way. That's why he had to move to Italy.
Exactly.
He couldn't play with the goggles on for whatever reason in Ireland,
which has since been changed.
I believe so.
Because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be any harm in them.
Indeed, it's just if it allows more people to play rugby, then why not?
Right,
surely
right.
the governing that has to be the governing body's stance, but it wasn't for whatever reason.
He's done
he's carved out a great career for himself, and he's had some big performances in Treviso, and he's played against Leinster a few times subsequently, and sure now he's linking up with Marty Banks, the great thing, which is a combo I love seeing. They don't pick them.
Marty Banks is gone, by the way.
Has he gone? Yeah, no, I know.
He's in Japan.
Monies.
Yeah.
And not Italy rugby.
Yes.
Because he's a quality player. He's always been a quality player. I was amazed when I learned that he was going to Treviso. It was like,
so random.
Who managed to get that done? What a deal. It's like, get a lovely Marty Banks in there.
And he did make some nice plays.
He did. They looked great for a while. But so that would be interesting to see him start in Chicago. That would be worthy of having that fixture on, I suppose.
I'm hoping, I believe that everyone would give him a rousing ovation.
I would hope so. Anyway.
He got one when he came back to Dublin and played Leinster for Treviso.
Yes, he did.
Everyone stood up for him.
So it's like fair play to him.
Absolutely.
So it is just again. It's on this Sunday though, or on Saturday.
It's actually it's a curtain raiser for the game between the Maori and the US,
which I have no problem with because that's an interesting game.
Well, it's an interesting game in the sense that we know, like, and again, I plead ignorance in the sense that all I know about the about USA rugby right now is that there are rumblings. That's what you read, is that there are rumblings.
They're pumping a load of money in,
rumblings,
which is a very American solution to many
unbeaten
problems
this year.
Yeah,
it dates back to last November. They lost to Georgia by a point.
That's serious.
In Tbilisi.
Yeah.
And then since then they've run the table on everybody by big scores. I was looking through their whole thing, that by big scores they've been beating every tier 2 team. Then they played Scotland, beat them. And now they're coming in, you know, there have been rumours, I wish I had read more into it, but I believe there's been a combine in the recent months.
Yeah.
A big rugby combine that they've done. Like they assembled a team.
Farming for athletes.
Yeah, they assembled a team that put 59 points on the team that won the Major League Rugby last year. So now it's all just a bit, what's going on? Are they just going to roll out a bunch of freaks and start absolutely killing everyone around
head
them?
over every other player in every position?
So I'm super curious to see what they look like this week.
Some former basketball players start dwarfing Brodie Retallick.
Yeah.
Going, what's going on? Who knows? But there's always been potential in the US to have a class rugby team, because there's just so many class athletes over there.
I'm super looking forward to watching that match, I have to say.
Because the Maori have a habit of being a hodgepodge mismatch of nonsense. See the Lions tour, where the only time we got to see D-Mac in action was at 10 for the Maori.
Yeah, in the rain.
With James Lowe on exit strategy and nothing else.
One game in the whole tour that he featured.
Yeah.
What a shame.
And he was on the same part. He was on the pitch with James Lowe, but not in their combo.
Yes.
What a shine. What a shine.
What a shine.
What might have been.
Truly. But as far as this game is before, we can't really do any analysis. I'm looking forward to analysing all of this stuff next week, and we will have so many more answers next week and the week after.
Yeah.
But this match just needs to be noted for the potential very interesting storylines that could be coming out of it.
Yeah, this is why I'm fascinated by the USA are coming to Dublin to play in the Aviva Stadium for the first time, which I didn't realise until this week. I was reading that, which is cute. But their years and their year and their progress has been excellent. So it's definitely.
It's also the week after the All Blacks game. So imagine
if we're beat up and dizzy and still drunk.
Yeah,
it could be a bit of an embarrassing egg on face moment potentially if they're all that. If they're worth the hype, you know.
Yeah. Alternatively, they could just be using a bunch of NFL coaches, getting a bunch of freak athletes in there who can't play rugby, and then getting curved by rugby teams. But the results on the pitch don't seem to say that. So I'm curious. The USA are a team we're going to be looking forward to breaking down.
I definitely think what we're going to see is a more hard-nosed defence from them. Whether they're attacking wisely or not, I think they know how to defend. They know how to make hits.
What's that based on? I don't know.
No, I think the way they shut down the way they shut down Scotland at times was effective, and Scotland attacked very cleverly. Right. So it was just like they were getting up, but they were keeping their line. I've seen very often US teams break in the past where they really had no need to or right to, and they just kind of shoot up. But they're seem more to be maintaining more discipline and backing their physicality to just do the job. They don't have to rush anywhere.
Some quiet New Zealand genius in behind there doing things.
There's a bunch of Kiwis all over the world, man, making rugby a better place.
So I'm looking forward very much to breaking down that USA performance. I'm looking forward to Georgia next week. Looking forward to seeing Fiji in action.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Fiji on the other side, they were probably peaking World Cup time. They might be nothing, but as far as this week, that's everybody was up. Well, the Dolo's gone. He's injured for the next couple of weeks, or next couple of months even.
Yeah, that's why Montpellier have been so rubbish.
Yeah, they don't have a Nadolo to pop it to off first phase every play.
We scored 3 tries. 2 of them were by Nadolo.
Another one he handed off.
He popped it off.
Yeah,
but
indeed. And Fiji suffer from similar Nadolo-isms as well.
Yeah, it's true.
So
we might have Ben Vulavula, your favourite 10.
Ben Vulavula, I don't know about him. We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll hear all about Ben Vulavula next week.
Yeah. But that's basically we're going to wrap up the podcast shortly enough, because we don't have a lot of evidence based on. We did review Bledisloe 3, which obviously happened, went by rote. As far as we were concerned, it was just kind of.
Yeah,
that was what I expected to happen.
I was watching it and I was just a bit like, no, don't get me wrong, there were some great plays in there. It was played at a good intensity, but it was almost like I've seen this movie before. Honestly, this has happened so many times. Like, they play each other 3 times a year. The games all take the same shape. There is an argument for. I know. Listen, Bledisloe is tradition. Tradition is tradition.
Yeah,
but
I was going to interrupt you there.
There is an argument for mixing it up a bit, because, geez. Like, how many crowds can you attract with the same game over and over again?
You'd be amazed.
Yeah, I guess.
How bitter is the rivalry? Please leave comments below.
Yeah.
Remind us exactly why it is that Bledisloe is an important thing, because I know it is.
Yeah, no, I was just suggesting maybe 2 games a year because, yeah.
And then what? Aggregate scores? You're talking crazy, man.
I remember I was reading
mental.
actually Richie's book here. I remember this hilarious anecdote in it where he's really pissed off that they lose a tour to France, where France win the second game and they win the first.
But it was like
on points difference they lost, and it's like actually what it should be and what it always has been is that the holders retain if it's a draw, and it's a draw because it's 1-1. Who invented this points difference? Cry, like he's really bitchy.
I love how competitive he is, though, but like, it's just
it actually should have been our trophy.
Him in France, though, man.
Yeah, he really hated France.
Thierry Dusautoir. There's one man who scared Richie McCaw.
The only man who scared Richie McCaw.
Yeah. But we're going to wrap things up with our quirky little semantics section, because if you've stuck with us this long, fair play to you, because I don't know if I'd have the stamina for it. But we've
You're doing stages, man. You're doing stages.
I guess, yeah. You can dip in and out.
Yeah. Every time you're commuting, stick on a bit of overlap rugby. This is what the world does.
Yeah, we hope so. But we just because we're such rugby nerds, we were just talking semantically about it earlier in the week, because we noticed a few things. But it was actually a few weeks ago that I noticed one, so I'm going to lead off with
just terminology
issues, because it was in the aftermath of the Leinster v Wasps game, which Leinster shellacked Wasps in easy.
That is the technical term.
It is a technical term. They shellacked them, bet them out the gate. And Delalio in his Lars Delalio in his coverage in BT was just breaking down one of the tries that Sean Cronin scored. It was actually the first try in the first half. It happened like 5 minutes in, which is bad. Yes, it was like reeks of system error if that's happening, because we did go through a few phases and then he just picked it up from the ruck and went clean through. And Delalio was making the point that the guard went walkabout. And I've never called them guard. It's obviously a term, but where we're coming from, and whenever I was playing rugby growing up, we were always told they were pillars, not guards. And I like, as much as it's just a word and it doesn't necessarily matter, I think it does matter, because pillars don't move. Guards move. Guards go walkabout. Guards get notions, like scrum halves get notions. Everyone gets notions. Pillars just stand there, and that's the job, and that's still true whether you're an under 5 player or whatever. If you're playing contact at that under 13 100%. Level, or you're playing international rugby, if you're a pillar, you're a pillar. Yeah. Stay there.
I remember getting absolutely smoked, but you can just it's the first thing you learn when you're on a rugby team is like you can never, like, it doesn't matter, like you can be on the blind side and the scrum half shaping open and you just lean off. That's such a rookie mistake. I know, it's such a rookie mistake.
It happens a lot. It still happens in international games.
It happens at pro level. You get lynched for it in any amateur team worth its salt. And you're right in the sense that, like, guards is an interesting way of looking at it. Like, you're guarding this little area, but guards move. Guards follow the play. Guards are looking for trouble. Whereas pillars, the whole purpose of that position, and to be fair, it's one of the few positions, one of the only positions in rugby where it's necessary to just stay there, because it's only going to be a little man running at you probably in most circumstances, so you're going to be able to get him, but he's going to be able to do nothing as long as you're there. It's the body that stays, and the pillar is just that position off the instant side of the ruck. Scrum half's
either
there,
side of the ruck, you're a pillar. So like the defensive system starts with pillar left, pillar right, pillar right,
and those guys stay put, and then outside them guys move. And it's interesting that the Delalio term is guard,
because he was a former Wasps as well, and he was just going, the guard goes walkabout, and it was something that clicked in me, going like, that's wrong. He's not a guard, he's a pillar.
And maybe the reason he went walkabout
maybe the reason he went walkabout, the guard thought he was on break, or I don't know, thought there was trouble over there.
Pillars don't take breaks.
No, man.
They stand for thousands of years.
Exactly. Some of them are still standing to this day, and no one has got through their channel for a soft try.
No,
it's
dead right.
Like, so
and the only other point that I quibbled is just something that I only noticed it because I started writing about rugby a bit more, and I've just, like, when you're writing about breakdown play, you always hear that teams are good or bad at the breakdown. And I just would like to introduce the stipulation. It's like there's two very different worlds of breakdown. It's almost like, because I'm watching NFL a bit these days as well, and it's like there's so much difference between the offensive line and the defensive line. It, like, to talk about a breakdown as if it's just one thing would be like talking about the line in NFL. It's just the line, the lineman. You know, they're all the same. The guys who are protecting the quarterback, guys who are trying to sack him. It's not. It's two vastly different areas, and you just wish that people people would talk a bit more, because when they talk about a good breakdown team, generally speaking, they're looking at the defensive breakdown, which is the term I'd like to introduce. Turnovers.
Yeah.
Pocock. He's a good defensive breakdown player.
Yeah.
But I think you need to talk a little bit more, and it doesn't get mentioned enough that the best teams in the world and the best teams in every
control
league,
their offensive breakdown very well. Yes,
Indeed.
and it's retaining ball with their offensive clear, their aggressive, good technical clearing.
Yeah, it's all about like offensive breakdown starts with the ball carrier and ends obviously with the scrum half, and it's what goes on obviously in between from everybody there, whether it's just smashing over guys, whether it's bridging onto a ruck, everything that's done to protect
even
the ball
when
and
the
make
ball,
it as
when
quick
the ball
as possible.
carrier lands on this side and then rolls over to the other side to present the ball,
presentation
so that
is a huge
the
part of it.
immediate latcher doesn't get it.
Everything that goes into retaining the ball as efficiently and as quickly as possible, that's your offensive breakdown play, and it's a huge part of the game, and it's a huge like some teams really do lack and struggle there. Like
Australia aren't great there, as much as they're often credited as a great breakdown team. Australia struggled there.
Great examples of this is like Ireland in Test 1 against Australia in June versus Test 2 of Australia in June. There wasn't much difference in how David Pocock was playing in both of those games, but in one of those games, the first test, he was everywhere. He was stealing balls at every breakdown he was in. He was at it, and you just think of that as good breakdown play by the defence. But the difference that an efficient and smart and targeted offensive breakdown system can make to just generating quick ball and letting your backs play rugby is massive. And I think that distinction needs to be talked about more, and in particular the offensive breakdown capabilities of a team have to be talked about a bit more. And for people who love stats, it's a big black
empty
hole
stat.
You could have a stat like how quick is your ruck ball and yada yada yada, but nobody's paying attention to that, and it's a huge part of what makes teams click.
Well, I do hear former players citing it a few times. I've heard Brian O'Driscoll mention it in Puntry.
Obviously,
this ruck turned into a 5 second, 6 second, 7 second ruck, and that's too slow. You know, because that's obviously what he's thinking.
Guys like Joe Schmidt are thinking about that big time.
Exactly. It's not like it's being ignored, but it's just in terms of breaking the game down.
No, only in terms of commentary. Is what I mean. It's not something that's missing on the field. It's just missing. It's missing in the view, in the broad picture colouring of the game.
Well, sure. This is our semantics section, which obviously the players aren't interested in one way or another. But I would like the players to think of themselves as pillars, not guards. And I would like, when you're talking about the breakdowns, to just make that distinction.
Because they're two different worlds.
And there are players who are good at there are pack players who are really efficient in one area but less so in others. And you see, like, actually, if you're talking about segueing back to the Springboks, I still don't like the technicality of their clear out technique sometimes.
They are generating quick ball,
but a lot of times that's them being big men. I think their technique goes walkabout sometimes when they get turned over.
See, Khaleesi's very good technique in that area. I just see a lot. You just give out about their second rows.
Their second rows start flopping. They're big men. They are big men, but
they'll kill you.
Oh, I know they would. They would
pick you up
easily and ragdoll
you around and then throw you. You'd be into the atmosphere.
I know I would.
You wouldn't land.
I'd share a pint with them and say they're all class, because they are all class. But I wish they get more technical in their offensive breakdown. Granted, Malcolm Marks, great defensive breakdown operator.
Yes.
Distinction with difference.
Yes.
And it's like,
God, it probably sounds very pretentious, but I think there's a nugget of interest there, perhaps.
Maybe, It's just something we noticed because we were talking about it. Like, there are little oversight. It kind of. It's nothing too bad, but when it snowballs, it leads to oversight and kind of blinkered vision.
True. I agree. And that's the only thing. It's just a tidbit on semantics, and you can take it with as
much grand as you want.
Exactly right. I think we're going to wrap
up on that note. So thanks very much for joining us for this. Has been ORP number 31 or episode 3 of the new series. Buzzing for the weekend, buzzing for the November series. Last bit of internationals before the year of the World Cup. So this block will be fun. Obviously, Ireland, New Zealand is the big game. Next week we're going to be breaking down the big game, which is Georgia, Italy. And we're going to be breaking that game down, and everything else is going to be taking a second seat. I think we're going to go a little in depth. We're going to look at Georgia, we're going to look at Italy. It's going to be a lot of fun. And so don't miss that one. Don't forget likes, comments, shares, subscriptions. All welcome, all very necessary. We're yet to really re-engage everyone since we've come back. So we would like to see comments. I think more than anything, we'd like to see comments. Because we'll engage with them, and we want to try and address certain things that you may have, or questions or queries, or as I said, corrections as well. Because we're perfectly open to being wrong on this podcast.
Absolutely.
And like we're.
perfectly frequently we probably will be somewhat wrong.
I'm sure we have been before, and by God we will be again.
Yeah.
But yes, this is our podcast. We can be as wrong as we like.
Indeed, absolutely. Listen, thanks watching.
Very much.
Take care, guys. See you. Bye.
We can go again.
I'm gonna put a bit of power into this one.
Ooh. I don't like that.
I don't know if that works.
It's a little low.
Yeah.
That was picked off by Peter O'Mahony, man.
Yeah, perhaps.